Hi everyone, in this video, which is part of the Nodejs How-To series, we're going to be looking at how to handle a post request on a Nodejs server. In one of the previous recipes, we looked at how to create a Nodejs server, but it could only handle a GET request. Now let us look at how we're going to handle a post request, which actually comes with a payload. To begin, let's create our Node.js file. So touch server.js. And now that we have our file, let's open up the project in Visual Studio Code. Now that we have our project open up in Visual Studio Code, let's get started. Just going to open up this file and we're going to bring in our HTTP module. HTTP, say require HTTP or require Node HTTP in some recent Node versions. Let's just go with HTTP. And now that we have our module, we can create our server. Say const server equals HTTP, create server, stick our callback, get our request and response objects. And now we can demonstrate how to handle a post request. Now, unlike programming languages like PHP or .NET that have some facility for extracting the payload of a post request, here in Node, you're building everything from scratch, you're building everything yourself. So to access the data that comes with the post request, you actually have to get your hands on the stream. Get your hand on the stream data and process the stream data to extract your post request payload. If you're still not familiar with how to work with streams, we have some videos on that in this series, so you can just go back to the playlist and check out the videos. I think we have like 3 or 4 videos on streams. You can check out those videos on how to work with streams, how to read streams, how to write streams, and how to transform streams. But for now, let's go back to the matter at hand, which is handling a post request. Now, first we have to check if the request hitting the server is actually a post request. So we're going to say if request method equals post. Request method equals post. So if we have a post request, we're going to define a payload variable. Just set it to a string because we want to get this as a string. And now that we have that, we can listen on the data event. Since this request is a stream, we can listen on the data event and get the request stream data in chunks. We say chunk. So we get chunks of the request stream data. Oh, this is wrong. What am I doing? This is chunk. This has to be put in a callback. Yeah. Really need to get rid of this IntelliSense stuff that keeps covering the screen. So this has to come in a callback. Yeah, and I have to close this. Sorry about that. So we listen on the data event, we get a chunk. And once we have a hold on the chunk, we can just add the chunk to this payload. We are going to be listening on every data event, and as each data comes in, we're going to be adding it to the payload. So the payload plus equals chunk. But since this chunk comes as a buffer, we need to convert it to a string using the toString method. So we use toString to convert this to a string so that we can concatenate it to this string and build up the payload. So now that we have the data listener, or rather event handler set, we can then check to see if it is done. We want to check if every piece of request data has now been captured. And to do that, we're going to use request and listen on the end. We're going to listen on the end event. So when this end event is fired, it means that the data is done. We have completed, or rather we have finished receiving the request data. And once we have all that, we're just going to make this an echo server that is going to echo back the request data to the client. We're just going to send it back. So just as we used an echo server when we were demonstrating how to make a post request in Node.js, now we are building an echo server. But this is not the main point of this tutorial. The main point of this tutorial is to see how to handle a post request, which we are currently doing. So we're just going to send back the data to the client, which response.end. Now response object, not the request object. Response.end, and we're going to say just send the payload back. Send the payload back. Let the client see a reflection of what they sent. So we have this. We check if there is if the request is a post request. We define a variable which is going to be the string of our request data. Like I said, HTTP is a text-based protocol, so you're going to get your data as text, but it doesn't really go on the wire as text. It goes as bits of data which are put in a buffer in chunks, and you can convert each chunk into a string. And once you have that, you can check for when the data has been received successfully. That's when we have received all the pieces of data that are coming in chunks, and send it back to the client. Send it back to the client, just like an echo server will do. But in a production scenario or in a real life scenario, you want to do stuff with this post data. You want to save it to a database, you want to do some processing, you want to write it to a file. Anything your server is responsible for, you can use this data to actually implement. So now let us listen. Let us listen on a port. Server.listen. Listen on port 5000. And just for feedback, let us use the callback to tell anyone that runs this server that the server is running, so that they can know that everything is a-okay. So node server is running. Server is running. Okay, we have that. So I think we're done. Let's take this for a spin. Save the file, go to the terminal, and let's run node server. Oh yeah, our server is running, which is really, really good news, which means that there are no syntax errors. Now let's test the server. So I'm going to create a new tab. I'm going to use call to send two post requests. One is going to be using the form URL encoded format, which is the default for the Nodejs server. Then we're also going to be sending JSON data. So let's fire the URL encoded one first. Just going to say call and pass data -d, and I'm going to set some parameters for a product. Let's say the name of the product would be leather, or let's just go with shirt. Let's just go with shirt. Yeah, that's the name. The color would be blue, and let's put the price at $50. Okay, so we have that. Then we're going to say dash capital X. This is a post request, and we would like to send this post request to our server, which is an HTTP server running on our machine, localhost, and at port 5000. So we're sending call. We're using call to send a client request. We have a data. This is our data. It's a post request. The default is form URL encoded. You can specify this by using a content type header, but that's not really necessary here as it's the default. So I'm just going to fire this request and hope everything goes right. Oh, good. Good. So we have our data back. The name, shirt, color blue, price 50. So we have been able to echo our data back. Now let's do the JSON request. Let's do JSON request. I'm going to be sending the same data, but now sending it as a JSON object. So we'll say call -d, and now we're going to have a string, and inside the string we're going to put our data. We have name. This is a JSON object, so we need to follow the rules. So we have name. The name is shirt, and the color is blue, and the price. So we have that. Let's close the string, and we need to tell the server that this is JSON data. We tell the server that this is JSON data, and we're going to be doing that by sending an header. The header we're going to send is the content type header, and this would be application JSON. Application JSON. Then once again, we say this is a post request, and we're sending it to HTTP localhost 5000. Okay, that was a lot of typing. Let's fire this. We have the content. Yeah, we have the header. Everything looks good. Let's hit enter, and yes, we have gotten our data back. We've gotten our JSON data back. Shirt blue 50. Awesome. So in this video, you've seen how you can handle post requests the Node.js way, which, as you have observed, is quite different from handling GET requests. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and for more bite-sized tutorials on how to do stuff with Node.js and other technologies, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.